You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
Sheldon Primus.
Welcome to the Safety Consultant Show with Sheldon Primus, where we blend safety smarts with business brilliance and a pinch of Sheldon's signature wit. Whether you're a safety pro, a fresh-faced consultant, or just safety curious, get ready for a show that'll educate, entertain, and elevate your safety game. Let's dive into the art of consulting with your safety Sherpa himself, Sheldon Primus.
This episode is powered by Safety FM.
Hey, Jill, welcome back to the show. It's so good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Sheldon. It's so good to be back, and I have to apologize for anyone who knows my voice. It does not sound like normal Jill James right now. I've got something going on in my larynx, but I am here for you.
Aw, you rock. All those people that are listening to your podcast are like, oh, he doesn't have Jill. That's not Jill.
Right? That's the Jill imposter.
Jill imposter.
It's like when I worked for OSHA and people would try to, there were impersonators.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, this is completely out of the blue, but whenever I do my section on OSHA classes, whenever I'm teaching, and I have to explain to people that back in the day that literally they had people who would know enough to do a mock audit, and then just because they had a business with the word OSHA in the name, people would feel like it's okay to write them a check, and before that check is dry, it's cashed and the person's gone. Have you had stories of that in Minnesota?
Yeah, I did. I was doing this investigation that was it was a very long investigation. It was an accident, a terrible accident with a young boy who was too young to be working at this particular facility, whose arm was amputated in a what's called a notching machine in a pallet manufacturing place. And the owner of that place employed children. So like 14, 15-year-old children. So I needed to involve other agencies Fair labor standards and try to figure out, is this person doing interstate commerce or intrastate commerce? Do I involve the feds or is it state? And it was a federal thing. And so I'm doing all that business. And also the owner of this facility was known in the county as having some pretty strong criminal history. And so the county sheriff had gotten in touch with me and said, I don't want you to go back there by yourself anymore. Always come here first. We'll send a deputy with you when you go there, all that business. Wow. So one day I get a phone call from the office person at this place. And she said, something about, when are you showing up? Something like that. Or when you come, I'm like, you don't make your presence known when you go to these places, of course. And I was going back repeatedly because I needed to with this particular case. And she had said that someone had called and said they were me and that I'd be back at a certain time and like all this stuff. Wow. And she called, I'm like, no, I did not call you. So yeah, I mean that it's part of what you train employers to know in their rights is that employers all have the right to ask for the credentials or the badge of the investigator, and they must show you, like you have to show that to people, and that would be one of those times, because it does happen. I don't it's not like it happened tons in my career, my 12 years with OSHA, but it did happen.
Oh my goodness! And that's just so brazen.
It is brazen. It is brazen. And by the way, that business is no longer open. And
good. Wow. Yeah. My business partner is ex-OSHA, 28 years for federal side. And he worked as the assistant area director at Tampa when he left. So he tells me stories about this whole bunch of stuff that he had throughout his career. And so I try to bring that to my classes whenever I'm teaching. And one of the other things, when I did talk to Jordan Barab, yeah, that was really cool getting a hold of him, talking to him. And I asked him a couple of questions about OSHA itself, just to give people a foundation of not only their rights, but what can OSHA really do. And I asked him, everyone says OSHA came and they shut us down. And I said, OSHA doesn't have the jurisdiction directly to shut you down. It has to be in certain ways. And it's really not OSHA shutting you down at that point. It's the administrative law judge that's shutting it down with the help of the local authorities. And so is that true? He said a few things about that, and he went even further about ag. But in your experience, am I telling my class the right thing about OSHA can't shut down a job?
Yeah, right. And so there are things that investigators can do. And so when I mentioned a moment ago that the pallet place is no longer in business, that is true. There was enough pressure. It's not that from a fine perspective, if you think about OSHA from a fine perspective, the fines in the grand scheme of many businesses are sometimes like a blip. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Like there are limits, especially in the federal OSHA has higher monetary penalties than many states do. So I worked for a state OSHA agency, and there were limits on the dollar amounts that could be imposed. And there still is in Minnesota, because I was just coaching an employer on this a week ago who was really scared that he was going to lose his business because of a fatality. And someone who had an illness and had a fall, and am I going to lose my business? And so I got that penalty chart out for him to show him what that looked like. And so like with the pallet service, they also had fines that were imposed on them by the federal labor standards because of employing children, that kind of thing. I'm not exactly sure what ultimately made that particular owner close their business. But I have also, there is in that case, and then in a couple of other cases that I investigated, there's something called a red tag. I don't know if Jordan talked about red tagging or if you ever talk about that.
Actually,
and so there is a way to shut down a piece of a facility. And so when that particular machine that chewed, literally, that is an appropriate word, off this child's arm, and the employer refused to take it out of service, then I can go to an administrative law judge and apply something called a red tag that is signed by, I believe the signing agent was the commissioner of the labor and industry. And then you apply that. So then that becomes, if they take it off and use it, then that employer is in, a bigger world of hurt, right? And I've done that with another employer who also had a piece of machinery that chewed up tires, like big giant tires, and turned them into mats. It was like a recycling sort of center, and would insist employees would, when the machine would jam, to get on top of this big hopper. Right. And so there are times in my career where I applied the red tag. And so that would be as close as it would come to shutting down a business. Criminal willful citations are another piece that do have higher monetary penalties, and then also the criminal aspect, right? Yeah. And so in my career, I attempted to pursue criminal willful in one death case, and the Attorney General's office in my state said, like, oh, we support you on this, but you're like missing they're scrutinizing the elements and the evidence that you have, and they said you just don't quite meet the criteria for criminal willful in that case. So I did not pursue that, wasn't able to, but I had coworkers who did. For things that are heinous. And I know, Sheldon, we're talking about these things that are really sad and really scary. Mm-hmm. And not all employers are terrible. Not all employers are terrible. The majority of employers are good and have good intentions to take care of their employees. It's just when you speak with someone who works for the agency, whose focus is on those less than ethical employers, we have a lot of stories, which would make sense, right? I mean, I did inspect employers who were really great, but they got on the list because it was like, oh, we're inspecting all of this sort of industry because the industry as a whole has a higher rate of blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Yeah, but just the nature of the work leads you to see kind of the worst of the worst, if that makes sense. Yeah, but not absolutely. Every single employer that gets inspected is the worst. They just might happen to be in the pool of that happens to have higher rates of injury and illness.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. Because you have to, in order for you guys do something like really great, because you're stuck with lagging indicators. Things happen. You have to investigate after it happens. But the way that you've been as an agency, federal and states, they take that information with the North American Industrial Classification System Code. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's just a grouping of people who are in the same kind of industry. They're like competitors, if you would. So that NAICS code leads to saying, all right, this industry, we got to make some time to check them out. These guys, okay, they're okay.
And every year, when I worked for OSHA, it was in the month of March. I worked for a state agency, of course, but in the month of March was when the agency was deciding who are we going to target in this next year, and then would come up with those criteria. And I always wanted to know where that came from and what it was about, because when I walked into a facility and presented my credentials or my badge, the first question you get asked is, why are you here? And then I never, ever gave the answer because your name showed up on a list. It was your time. That's trite and is a disservice. And it's just not nice to tell employers that, like, oh, well, and so I always wanted to know what was the criteria for this particular fiscal year in that case. And so sometimes it was like, we're going to focus on the utilities this year. And so we're going to take all of the utilities in the state and we're going to take every 10th one on the list like that was literally some of the ways those things were decided. And the NAICS codes that you're talking about, yes, absolutely. So you match up, Bureau of Labor Statistics is showing that the wood manufacturing industry and this sort of NAICS code specifically is having these kind of injuries or amputations or whatever. So we're going to use that NAICS code, find out who all those employers are, and then we might marry it up with an experience modification rate, or we're just going to, again, gather all of them in this NAICS code, and we're going to take every 20th one, and that's going to be on the, like that kind of thing. Or if the experience modification rate of X number that year, we're going to look at all employers in the state. If they're over this threshold number, they're going on the list. And so it was always different. Workers' compensation rate, same thing.
Yeah.
And then the standard. Anything with imminent danger, fatalities, serious injuries, those were that. Yeah.
And the
unprogrammed. Yeah.
Yep. And the field operation manual for your gang right now, it's the time of this recording, field operation manual should be 164. So what you could do is just kind of look through that, and you can see how OSHA does their planning and inspections and everything else. And so there you go. Self-education, everybody.
Yeah. It's not random. Everybody thinks like, like you just wake up in the morning and decide where you're going to go. But no,
it's actually literally in the budget. You could just look up the OSHA budget for 2025 and you can see exactly what's going to happen with the full-time equivalent hours. It's literally there. There's no guessing.
So I don't know if that's where you want to start this podcast, Sheldon. I'm sorry.
It starts where it starts.
Okay.
Whatever comes out of our mouth is meant to be. That's my motto.
Okay.
I did have a question with, since we're in the OSHA vein, and I am still trying to wrap my head around this one. I didn't get to talk to Jordan about this, but I did talk to Phil Russell, who's a lawyer who represents a lot of people against OSHA. I don't know if you want to say that, but he's one of these really high-end lawyers that goes to actual Washington, D.C. and represents clients. So I had him a couple of times on the show, a friend of mine, and I asked Phil about tell me about turning over the actual Chevron Deference, where now instead of, I know I'm just giving you the big ones today.
You sure are.
So when I told them about this, I said, to me, what this means is now if OSHA needed to do some sort of, it won't be, you guys can't regulate on a letter of interpretation, but it's a way for you to show this is how we interpret this particular standard in this situation. So I said, what if someone now with this new heat stress standard says, well, I don't believe that we should be using wet bulb testing or something like that. And now they, if there's any ambiguity, they could go to a federal judge. The judge makes the rules instead of the experts.
The professional.
And so in that case, that tells me that if there's any kind of, for you guys listening, OSHA usually has two, really, there's many different types of standards, but the performance standards is one where the rules is basically you will know that how you get to the compliance is up to you, but this is what you need to comply with. So like a competent person, you got to have, competent person's got to do 3 basic things. If you look for something dangerous, hazardous, or something that is going to be unsanitary. And if they can't find that, then they're not the competent person and they can't, stop the work. Right. So then if someone says, well, how do you get them competent? And now that's ambiguous of how do you get them competent? Can the judge now
based on experience and blah, 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 the way that it's written, it is very ambiguous. Yeah.
So now if a judge gets something on the competent person and the judge says, all right, well, now to be competent, you need to go through this school and this OSHA 10, OSHA 30. And now this is our definition of how to get competent. Now that will stand. So, and it's open right now for, oh man, I should take that back. I don't want anyone to start doing that now, but
I know. I'm like, Sheldon, I didn't think about that one. I was only thinking of other doomy gloomy things with the Chevron. Yeah.
So now in my understanding of this, am I doom and gloom myself or is that a possibility now with this overturning of Chevron?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I think it remains to be seen with the crystal ball, and we're going to find out. We're going to find out more once we start seeing things get contested, And then the question that I have, and I don't know what the attorneys that you've talked to have said, but in my mind, I'm thinking, who is going to contest and take things to a court? Someone who has the means to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so the means to be able to do that, we're not going to see. I mean, I wouldn't suspect that we see small employers trying to finance that sort of thing. So who are the entities that are going to fight and contest, and for what reasons are they going to do it? Is it to be able to do less and not provide as safe a place of employment, or is it going to be because they want something better?
We need tougher rules, right?
Right. Like, do we see
rules.
that happening? Likely not. I mean, it is really a disturbing thing to think about. And the reverberating effects are, scary to take away the professional, to take the profession out of it and to put the onus on a judge to try to figure out all of these things. My gosh, I wouldn't want to be those judges. Imagine trying to figure this out, or the work that their staff is going to have to do if they do it. Right? I mean, what is immediately dangerous to life and health? What does that mean? What is the difference between a 4-foot fall and a 6-foot fall and a 25-foot fall? What about voltages, and what about machine guard? What do we, you can go on and on and on and on. And so are judges going to do that work? Are they going to try to find I mean, we already have professionals, right? We already have the letters of interpretation. We already have the precedents for this, and to unwind it and put it in the hands of a judge is, I hope the judges do well. I hope they do well. I hope they do their homework. It's, and it feels scary we've been living for the last number of years, in my opinion, with the degradation of professionals and professional opinions, and people who study, and people who you can hold up 4 fingers and say, I'm holding up 4 fingers, and someone says, no, you're not, you're holding up 5 fingers. No, I'm holding up 4 fingers. Can you count those 4 fingers? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I see 5 fingers. We only have 5 fingers. I don't believe you. Well, it's my hand that's connected to this, and I'm holding up 4 fingers. No, I'm not. No, you're not.
Yes.
I'm holding up 5. And so it's this cataclysm of disbelief, and that's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
And surely what we see is, and I know with something with the legal side, what this is the flip side, if you would, is the businesses are the possibility of saying, all right, well, Congress is supposed to make the rules. So if Congress makes the rules, no ambiguity, it's in the laws, and Congress is going to have the staffers and everyone else who's going to put together the laws per the professionals. So let's let Congress make the rules. And then if there's ambiguity, we'll let the judges handle that. And the agencies just basically run what Congress tells them is the law. And that's the flip side. And that sounds a little utopian to me.
It does. And it's also confusing. I mean, it's confusing for employers, right? So if these things are happening in a patchwork of states sort of way, if it's not done on a federal level, then, I'm sad for employers who have employees in multiple states and locations. Like, what is the law here? What is the law there? What is the law here? What is the law here? And we end up with this patchwork of things that, employers will, they'll figure out their best practice and hopefully rise to the thing that protects their employees the most. Yeah. Anyway, Sheldon, I'm sorry. Is this called the Doom and Gloom podcast?
No,
I'm waiting with everyone else to see how this shakes out.
We'll be back with more of Sheldon Primus and the Safety Consultant Show in just a moment. Are you ready to make a difference? Introducing the Safety Consultant Blueprint course. Unlock your potential as a safety consultant. Learn the skills, strategies, and ethics to create safer workplaces for your very own client. From risk assessment to client acquisition, we've got you covered. Become a safety consultant and open doors to being your own boss. Join us and be the hero of workplace safety. Enroll today. Safety starts with you. Take the first step now. Visit our website and enroll in the Safety Consultant Blueprint course. Empower businesses. Protect lives. SafetyConsultantBlueprint.com. We now return to the Safety Consultant Show. Once again, here's Sheldon Primus.
Yeah, I'm finally getting someone who's got the banter on OSHA. So here I am nerding out, and but I did have. I know that you've got a passion project with psychological safety. So here's a transition. I know it does have some doom and gloom per se in some ways if it's not being touched, but there's hope out there, and there's all kinds of things. Like I've seen some mental health first aid training out there now, and there's just ISO 45003 is out there now. It seems like CalOSHA with their standard. It seems like now businesses are stepping up, and they're got away from when you come through this door, you leave your problems behind in that the other side of the gate. And we finally recognized that we've got the whole person in our workplace. We got to keep the whole person safe. And how's your outreach to that? How are you starting to see people come to that realization that, there is psychological safety out there, and we really want to make sure that the workers feel safe when they come to work.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of buzzwordy things that are happening in that space right now that might, just resonate with employers in different ways. You mentioned psychological safety. Okay, we've been hearing about that and trying to define that. We've been hearing about whole person for a long time, and what does that mean? We hear about well-being, those kind of, or wellness, that kind of stuff. I think, in my tenure, I think the word wellness has been around for a super long time. And employers often thought of that as like the annual wellness fair. We're going to have a thing, and we're going to bring in local vendors, and we're going to have, the local clinic come in, and people are going to be able to get their blood pressure taken and their height and weight, and they're going to check this and check that, and the insurance companies are going to come in and let people know that this and the other thing are available to them, and none of those things are bad. Not at all. I think that's what we saw a long time ago, and I'm sure those things continue to happen today. Flu shot clinics and all that stuff. We're going to do all these things, and I think it's getting more and more granular now. Granular. And I've been asking EHS professionals, and I belong to the women's division for the National Safety Council, and we meet every month. And I was asking, a couple months ago, who here has ownership over something in that realm? Call it what you will among those titles. And there are a number of people who either own an initiative wholly in addition to EHS, or are part of it. And so when we think about what does that even mean in practice, I kind of think about this topic of the human being and I'm going to use the word wellness, their well-being, in that we want people to show up at the job and be able to keep their mind on their job, be able to keep their minds on their job, which is going to keep them safe, keep them efficient, keeping capitalism churning, right? And we want that to happen. And so what are those items and ways and things that keep people's minds off their job and not being able to show up and be present for their work? And we know when people aren't present, they're going to get hurt. They're not going to be as efficient,
They get bored. They get bored.
Yeah, they might get bored.
Stuff.
Right. I mean, that can be an outcome as well. I had a guest on my show recently who stood up she called it 4 Pillars of Wellbeing, and as the EHS lead. And then this became a corporate initiative. And so what they did was they focused on, let's see if I can memorize, if I get them all right, the financial security of the employee, the physical health of the employee, the emotional health of the employee, and the social health of the employee. And so I asked her to break those down and what did they do in their organization? And so financial security. So, and I heard someone speak about this at ASSP, the national conference this year in the construction industry. I'm gonna wind around here, Sheldon, a little bit.
Wind away.
The University of Colorado at Boulder has a group of researchers who are dedicated to researching health and safety outcomes. And so one of their emphasis areas right now that I heard this person present on is the high rate of death by suicide in the construction trades. And one of the things they've identified as a contributor is financial insecurity. Because of the construction trade itself being seasonal often, meaning incomes are interrupted, and schedules are interrupted because of seasonality, because of weather, because of whatever. And so the trade itself has this unpredictability with the income for the people who do the work. And so their focus and recommendations for the industry as a whole is how can we shore that up so that people can manage, teaching people to manage their finances through the seasonality of that work, and what can employers do, and how can they give their employees confidence about the schedule and the certainty around scheduling so that it takes that fear away from them.
Oh yeah. We get some little base of security.
Yeah. And so the guest on my podcast was Catherine West is her name. She was talking about what they did in their organization, and it wasn't, lots of employers who have 401ks or whatever will bring in that finance person once a year and talk about you should save for retirement, blah blah blah. But they took it further than that, and they talked about here's how to keep things balanced. Here is help if you have debt. Here's how we do real tactical things that people deal with as individual human beings to help them with their financial security so they can take that worry away. So that was one piece, right? And so and physical health, of course, physical health can, be all of the things that we as EHS practitioners already do for the physical health of the employee once they're in the building, on the job site. But what about other health? How else can we take care of the physical health of the human being, whether it's, smoking cessation programs and healthy eat, blah, 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 all of the things that they're going to do at home before they show up at work. The emotional piece of much of that has to do with, okay, our mental health. We all have mental health, like we all have physical health, and we all have a range of physical health, a range of emotional health. And so what can employers do to create access for employees to have help with emotional health to keep things steady? Or if there is an issue and they're having an illness with their emotional health, how do they know what the means are that they can be helped? And you mentioned first aid for mental health first aid a little bit ago.
Yeah.
So if no one's heard of that before, that is an actual organization called mentalhealthfirstaid.org. And you can get your first aid in mental health certification, just like you can get a first aid, training card, whether a certification, whether it's through HSI, my organization, or other organizations for first aid. But you can get through Mental Health First Aid your first aid training through them. And also they have a lot of trainers through the organization NAMI. Let's see, can I remember? NAMI stands for North American Mental Illness. Anyway, I had my training through them for mental health first aid. I've had the training. I've used the training. I am so grateful for the training. I have used it primarily with family members, but I've also used it with people I run into, like someone who was really suffering next to me sitting on a plane once. Anyway, it's fabulous.
Wow, that's awesome.
It is. The social piece that Catherine talked about is community and people feeling a sense of community. And how can we help people feel community at work? But what about away from work? Like, what social connections do they need to, we don't want to live in isolation. We are, social beings after all. And so if your social connection isn't at work, where else can you be paying attention to having a social connection in your life, in your community? Whether it's maybe something to do with your faith. If you have a faith tradition, maybe that's your social connection. Maybe it's through volunteering or something that you do. I personally volunteer in restorative justice as part of the juvenile justice system with my local county attorney's office. And, I'm in community with other families who need support a couple of times a month. I just did that last night. Yeah. And so it's like having that social connection. So all of those things that Catherine talked about, and this isn't new, like, my guest Catherine talking about financial, physical, emotional, social, these things aren't new. I actually found a book on my bookshelf this morning that I hadn't looked at in a really long time, and it's called Wellbeing. And it's by the people that with the Strengths Finder, they had written this book called Wellbeing by Tom Rath, Jim Harter. And I opened it this morning and I'm like, oh, is it all the same stuff that Catherine talked about? This isn't new. Yeah. There was one other piece to well-being, and they were talking about it in the workplace setting as well. And the one that they added was career well-being. And doesn't that make sense?
It actually seems like a mirroring of the actual old Abraham Maslow theory of hierarchy of needs, but then also it seems like it's a version of the Ryan and Deci model for self-determination theory. It sounds like the self-determination theory meets Maslow, and it actually is practical. So I like the vein of that.
Yeah. And so, people are listening are like, hey, I'm the safety person. Hey, I'm the EHS. Are you kidding me, Jill? Are we supposed to be doing this too? I challenge that there is a nexus there when we think about how people are showing up at work. How are they showing up and what are they coming into with? We are human beings. We all have our things. I have a crappy voice today. I am at work, but I have something that's taking my mind a little bit off of my work because I'm not feeling as well, right? And so every individual that walks into a door onto a job site comes with all of their things. And so how can we be helping them show up the best that they can? And do we own that as EHS professionals? Some people are owning it. My friend Catherine, she's owning it. Others, it's multidisciplinary approach with multiple departments throughout an organization that are working on this together. It becomes a corporate initiative, and I think it's really important.
The corporate culture, because eventually you're going to have to shed the term safety culture, and it'll be corporate culture.
100% corporate culture. Yeah, safety culture needs to go away a long time ago. It's corporate culture.
It's corporate culture. I mean, we have to. Safety needs to also be incorporated as not just a necessary evil, but we could be, as Dr. Todd Conklin says, the capacity. Todd and Sidney Dekker together say it's the safety should be the capacity for the organization to not only learn, but then also the capacity for the organization to grow. And we're the person we're the department that sees risk in a different way. And our view of risk isn't myopic. We actually have the people that are actually doing the work, the line. We're there to help support the line. And as we start seeing risk tolerances get greater, or we start seeing other people who are truly not even engaged anymore, that now shows us that there is new risk. That new risk, when it gets addressed, makes the organization function better. So we're like the first people to notice that. We're like the early warning system, if you would.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it. Yeah. The chirping battery that is going on the smoke detector. Yeah.
At everybody's grandmother's house right now.
Right.
There's that battery being chirped. You mentioned your company, HSI, and you recently got, I told you that HSI's got a soft spot in me because you guys were the absolute first instructional design company that had me review some OSHA courses back in the day, actually before you were there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I got my daughter her first car.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Thank you for the work. We are, that's true. The content that HSI creates and content is one of the things that HSI does, but the EHS content, and we have so many other veins of content now, whether it's industrial technical skills, employee training and development, many of the things that we might put in soft skills. Yes. And then, yes, a very giant, wide and deep breadth of what we'd call workplace health and safety compliance, and which is what you'd helped with as an SME, Sheldon, many, many years ago. And we are very proud of the fact that the content that we develop with our team of learning solutions and experts in how to develop training for adults. We do use subject matter experts. We're not creating things to be able to push it out the door really fast. We want to make sure it meets compliance, but also that the way that we do it is with examples and in settings that people can visualize and see when they're taking our courses. Like, okay, this is what this means in my workplace, right? That it's relevant and meaningful in that way. Yeah.
Well, I've seen a lot of people who have now gotten into training for safety in different ways. And some of them are starting to use a lot of AI. Some are in good ways, and artificial intelligence. I'm all in with that one. I've been using it in different ways to help myself and also to help clients and everything else in my safety consulting role. Have you guys started to embrace some of this, or do you also, flip side, do you have warnings on some of these things too? What's your
right. So HSI is absolutely adopting AI. Absolutely. And we do have some things that we've put into our platform now. I actually saw this week what we have in our platform. I think I would have to check to make sure if it's is it live that I can talk about it or not? But it was impressive. And I was in this meeting this week, and they're like, okay, we can ask it this to pull from, our content or our this or our that. And I'm like, trying to bust it, right, and seeing what it would come up with. But anyway, I probably better find out what I can talk about and what I can't talk about. But to say HSI is absolutely embracing AI in a responsible manner to be helpful to our customers. And the cautionary tale, absolutely, Sheldon, there's always a flip side, right? There's the balcony and the basement to everything, when it's operating at its best and when it's not.
Balcony and basement?
Yeah. You like that? I pulled that. No, that's not mine. I learned that from Gallup and their Strengths Finder. They talk about your individual strengths working, in your balcony or in your basement. It's like your greatest strength can also be your greatest weakness if used inappropriately, right? So things like, with AI, you can type into AI, tell me, and I've done this, what are all the OSHA regulations that require training? Be careful with things like that, because you're going to get a list of like 7 or 10, and we know that there is way, way, way more. So anyway, I think it's a good way to get people started. I think it's a good way to get people started on things.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. And I think if you have a concern or an issue and you're just kind of blocked, almost like a writer's block, I think AI has been really good to help like expand that. And then from there, you got to research and you got to, vet things that comes back to you, but at least it expands that. I know you got to run, so please tell the audience, not only I'm telling the audience now that they need to listen to Accidental Safety, but tell how to reach you, what's the new things happening, what's the way that they could connect with you after the show.
Sure. So the Accidental Safety Pro is the name of the podcast that I've been hosting for the last 6 years, where I interview health and safety professionals from around the world, and they tell their origin stories of how they accidentally, it's a pun, got into the work of EHS, and we all have our accidental journeys. And then every once in a while, I have the great advantage of having someone who's a topical expert in something, or like my friend Catherine, who really wanted to talk about employee wellness and well-being. So that was wonderful. HSI as an organization, we continue to grow, and I'm so excited about the work that we're doing to make workplaces healthier, safer, and smarter. Coming up in November, you and I are recording mid-October right now, but coming up in November, we are meeting with our customer advisory board in Dallas, and with a number of our board members, which means customers, and we just love getting information from them. One of our customers is hosting us, and they are going to show us in real time how they're using our EHS system in their manufacturing facility, along with all the other board members are going to get to see how their peer and colleague is using our system. And then we meet with our product team and like, what else can we do? What else can we do? What else could change? How are you doing? We get to see this in real life in a setting, and it's so fun. And so it's an exciting time at HSI.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Hey, Jill James, everybody. Oops, hold on. Hit the wrong button.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sheldon.
That's a wrap for today's safety show. Remember, safety isn't just about hard hats and caution signs. It's about business smarts too. Thanks for joining us on the Safety Consultant Show with Sheldon Primus. Until next time, stay safe, stay savvy, and keep consulting like a boss. Go get 'em. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast or broadcast are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within the past hour, only examples. It should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the positions of the company. No part of this podcast or broadcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast or broadcast, Sheldon Primus.
This episode has been powered by Safety FM.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.